So the big question about the P. Diddy shenanigans that's going on is it a controlled demolition, or is it the dismantling of the paedophilic satanic system that has had us all in its thrall, in its grip for so long? Well, I guess this depends upon your perspective firstly, but what do I mean by controlled demolition? Well, if you look at any of the massive disclosures over the last 15 years at least, such as Jimmy Savile's satanic paedophilic reign over the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Ireland on television. He was on television for 50 years with children on his knee. When I was a kid, he had little children on his knee, and we would write, "Dear Jim, please fix it for me," to blah 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 blah, and he'd make these films. It was all hidden in plain sight. How could this man who raised money for Stoke Mandeville Hospital, how could this man who became a Knight of the Realm after, I think it was 7 attempts by Margaret Thatcher to make him a Knight of the Realm, maybe the public officers weren't completely corrupt back then, I don't know. But he was best friends with the royal family. He was a mentor to King Charles. He was a really close friend of Prince Philip, Mountbatten, all massive paedophiles, pedivores actually. They didn't just rape children, they did much, much worse to them on a grand scale. Jimmy Savile was like the Pied Piper, pulling children down through the children's home system, the prison system, all sorts. So evil, it's beyond words. But it was a limited hangout and a controlled demolition, in so much as his crimes were so vast, they had to come out at some point, but it was controlled. So it was controlled, and it was a few victims, and then it was a few more victims, and then it was 500 victims. It was tens of thousands, right, over his lifetime. And then it was, it was just, a few girls and a few boys. And I mean, it was much, 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 much worse than that. And, and all these documentaries about Jimmy Savile in the last 10 years don't really go anywhere near the truth of it. And that's what a controlled demolition is. It's very similar to Philip Schofield reappearing on our screens very soon after being on an island alone for, alone? How do they film him then? Anyway, being on an island and then bearing his soul to the camera in a kind of sick, bizarre rehabilitation back in... I mean, if I was him, I'd just go and fucking hang myself, Philip. Really? You know what you've done. It's unbelievable. But controlled demolition is when it looks like the story's done and dusted and buried. I mean, most people don't pay more than 5 minutes attention to a headline or a story. And, I think there was some statistic I read years ago that, people don't read past the first paragraph. 95% of people don't read past the first paragraph of any story. So you can get away with blue murder in the media just with a headline. So that's how it's a controlled demolition and a limited hangout. So with P. Diddy, I don't think anybody's questioning the evidence that's all over social media that this man was running these horrific parties, freak-offs, okay? I've known about this for so long, it's ridiculous. I had a friend called Brian Glancy, who was a musician, who unfortunately is no longer with us. Brian was a very, very talented and getting famous musician in Manchester 35 years ago. And I became good friends with Brian, and Brian told me about how he went to Hollywood in the late 80s, I think, or the early 90s, and he was taken to parties, and he came back a different person, and he would refer to Hollywood as Hell A or Los Angeles, and he didn't go into details. He said, I asked him about it, but he said that I wouldn't be able to cope with the information, and he didn't want to tell me. And I think it had a profound effect on him because he was a beautiful soul. And look him up. You can find his songs on YouTube. Brian Glancy. Wonderful man. Now, this was really part of my awakening, actually, over the years. And it led me to discover the truth about satanic paedophilia and the truth about how people get recruited into the Illuminati and secret societies. They get taken to rituals. So the party will start with a bit of cocaine at the end of the night, and that might graduate, your behavior would graduate you to the next step of the initiation process, which would be, I don't know, an orgy. And then that would graduate you to the next step. And it just keeps going up and up and up and up until you're at the point of no return. You're at the point, and in the case of P. Diddy and the case of Jeffrey Epstein and the case of Jimmy Savile, you were totally blackmailable and under total control of the people or the creatures or the entities that control the people that control you, because it's a pyramidical structure in society. And to pull people up that structure, you have to pass certain tests or initiations. And the freak-off parties that P. Diddy is being accused of, and you know, thousands of bottles of baby oil and all of that, they're not going anywhere near the truth at the moment. The truth is far, far. You will find some amazing researchers online already. There's great stuff out there that goes deeper into this, that talks about really famous people, you know, Hollywood superstars and political superstars, people that we have given all our energy to over such a long period of time, because that's how this works. It's like energy harvesting. We idolize satanic monsters. You know, this is very, very clear. Just listen and look at people like Taylor Swift and that other degenerate, I can't remember her name. You know, the music industry is absolutely packed of them. There's beautiful songs that can come through these people, weirdly. Go and look up the work of Charlie Freak or Mark Devlin. They'll tell you so much more than I know about the music industry. But the music industry is the tip of the iceberg. It's Hollywood, it's politics, it's newsreaders. I mean, look at Hugh Edwards recently, another one who's, you know, they're taking the piss out of us, aren't they? You know, you get put in prison for a Facebook post that disagrees with current government policy. Yeah, Hugh Edwards gets off with a suspended sentence. I did a video about this the other week. Yeah, that's why this, is it a limited hangout? Because on the indictment, there are no other names on it apart from P. Diddy at the moment. So it would be easy to see how this could be a limited hangout where he's the sacrificial lamb for the bad guys. And this has happened many, many times before. When the Jimmy Savile case came out, there was this thing called Operation U-Tree in the UK, which was another farcical investigation, independent investigation, controlled by the same people that run the paedophile rings, to dismiss it in the minds of the public. And what they did with Operation U-Tree is they arrested a load of other low-level paedophiles, you know, DJs mainly, you know, people like Stuart Hall and Dave Lee Travis, and then Rolf Harris, who famously painted the Queen, Tommy Kangaroo down, sport that wanker, you know, and they put them in prison. And Max Clifford, who was the biggest PR agent in Britain for 30, 40 years, who controlled the narratives and protected the reputations of these people in the media, because they, you know, so many people in the media know about these people and and are complicit because they know. You know, I worked at Granada TV 30 odd years ago briefly, and I remember being told about one of the producers who'd had a baby with a woman, and they all knew that this guy was a paedophile, and this baby was being born for him to abuse, and yet they carried on working with him. You know, it's a journey. Learning this stuff is a journey, and the limited hangout side of it is a danger for us, which is why we have to speak out about this stuff and spread the word about it, because the P. Diddy thing, what really went on at those parties, is far, far, far worse than just orgies. Far, far, far worse. There's a Dutch banker called Ronald, whose surname I can't remember, who talks about a very similar kind of initiation process that he went through as a businessman, as a banker, and the parties just got worse and worse and worse and worse. And he thought it was all a joke. He thought they just dressed up as witches and put their eyes wide shut, hooded cloaks on, because they were, you know, he thought it was taking drugs, and the ultimate drug is adrenochrome, by the way. Go and look that up. Also known as white rabbit, because of the chemical shape of the when you draw a chemical, it looks like a white rabbit. That's what this war that we're in It's a spiritual war that we're in. Is all about, it's about children, because that drug is taken from tortured children at the point of death, and it's adrenaline mixed into the pineal gland. It's the biggest high in the world, apparently, and you'll find Johnny Depp taking it in the film. I think it's called Not Leaving Las Vegas. It's the film where he plays the Hunter S. Thompson, guy with the cigarette and a holder. I can't remember what it's called now. Sorry, you'll have to look that one up as well. But type in Johnny Depp adrenochrome, you'll see him taking that substance, because they have to hide everything in plain sight. That's part of their modus operandi, right? On my website, it says hidden in plain sight, hidden in plain sight. It's once, I started learning about this stuff. I think I was in Manchester in 1999, and I read a thing called the Protocols of the Elders of Zion, of the Learned Elders of Zion. If you look that up on Google, you'll say it's all anti-Semitic shit. It isn't. Go and look at Janet Osbard's full Cabal series on Bitchute, and I think it's episode 27 or something, and it explains the true history of the Protocols of the Elders of Zion. Now, this document scared the shit out of me when I read it 5 years ago? 25? I don't know, 35, 25, I can't count. But it was 1999, yeah, 25 years ago. That's what happens when you get to my age, you start losing counts. And I looked around and I could see everywhere. I could see the symbolism in the architecture. I could see the symbolism in the corporate logos. Just type in corporate logos, Saturn. You'll find Saturn in pretty much every corporate logo, big corporation. If you live in London, you'll see it everywhere, because it's the Transport for London initiative. Go and type in London Underground logo, Saturn. You'll see there was an art exhibition in the 30s, clearly pointing to the fact that it relates to Saturn. Why Saturn? Well, Saturn, some people disagree with this, but Saturn is controlling this matrix. It's Satan, basically. This is why when Brexit happened, the whole of the population of London voted to stay in the EU, and the rest of Britain voted to get out of it, because they're not subject to quite as heavy mind control as the people within London. So, is the P. Diddy thing a limited hangout, or are we going to start seeing these things falling? Now, a lot of people who talk about the truth will say, well, they're not exposed, they're not saying enough. Well, I'm an apocalyptimist, right? So I know the outcome of this spiritual war is that we, the souls, the living souls on this earth, have won this war on multiple dimensions. We're in the third density at the moment, and we're watching that play out. And I think that this is working on a consciousness level. The depth of depravity of P. Diddy and Epstein and Savile and everything, they can't show us all of it immediately, because it's just too much for most people. I've been thrown out of parties. I've been ostracized for years for talking about the satanic paedophilia and the 22,000 children that go missing every single day worldwide since the Second World War, which is 1 billion children. Just let these numbers sink in. That's 1,000 children an hour every day. Every hour for years and years and years. Where do they go? Well, a lot of them go underground. A lot of them go into deep underground military bases. A lot of them get locked into dungeons underneath stately homes, and they get used in satanic rituals for this party drug, adrenochrome. And ultimately, it's about control. It's about control of your mind, my mind, our souls. This is a war for our souls. I am hoping that the P. Diddy thing is going to start rapidly dismantling the heroic status that we've got so many of these celebrities and famous politicians in, because none of them have worked for the human race. Look at all the poverty, look at the war. That's not humans that do this. Humans may be the ones that go and actually fight on the front line, but the wars themselves, the whole fucking system is run by demons, entities that go through people. That's who the real enemy is, which is why Muslims should not be fighting against Christians. Gays should not be fighting against straight people. Women should not be fighting against men. We are all one consciousness. And once we get that unity consciousness flowing through us and our connection to God, that's when we can defeat these demons. So personally, I'm watching the P. Diddy thing with great interest. Don't get married to anything that you see. I'm not talking about love life, I'm talking about ideas, right? Try to remain in a calm point of zero energy, if you can. Meditation is a great way to do this. Lots of people have different ways of doing it, but if you can find that in yourself, you will start receiving information that is actually true, and that truth is the thing that will guide you through the rest of your life, which hopefully will be to the glorious victory, not hopefully, definitely be to the glorious victory of the human race. God bless you. Have a wonderful day.